you so much for coming on the show. It's great to finally meet you nowadays because this is how we do it to each other through Zoom. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and your organization and what you're passionate about?
All right. Well, wow, that's a loaded question on the.
Start with
Um,
anything you want. Probably
yeah,
your name.
yeah. So my name is Corey Koehler. It looks like Kohler, so if you see it out there in the wild, you might not recognize it from the sound. But I'm a mechanical draftsman turned search engine solopreneur is what I'm calling it
Nice.
these days. And I also am super interested in the future of work. That's a big
Hmm.
topic for me these days. So how I got here, like going from a mechanical draftsman to a search engine solopreneur. I don't know, it's getting to be a mouthful. Maybe I should reconsider that. But
SES. It's your search engine solo. Actually, search engine solopreneur is fine. Even though I really don't like the term solopreneur, there's nothing better for it,
I will tell
unfortunately.
I will tell you, I've been going back and forth in my head for the last 6 months as to whether I like that term or not.
Mm.
I use it. Some days I do, some days I don't. I don't know. I'm just kind of sticking with it because it seems to be self-explanatory and it's becoming more popular. So
It's the
I figured,
simplest explanation. Like you say solopreneur, people know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah, no, one business, one person, business owner, self-employed, blah blah blah. But it's like solopreneur. Okay, so how did I get here? Okay, well, so
Yeah.
back in the '90s, I was a draftsman, and one of the things that kind of got me interested in the future of work, looking way back into the past in the '90s, was this whole AI thing reminds me of what it was like. I was a draftsman, so when I first went to school to become a mechanical draftsman, we drew on a board with a pencil, an electric
Hmm.
eraser, and all that kind of thing.
I remember all that.
And
I
yeah,
almost went into architecture, believe it or not. It was
oh
my second love was architecture.
yeah, yeah. It it is crazy because like this whole AI thing is kind of bringing back those memories where like I would say the second year I came back to school, there was less draft boards and there were more computers, right? So
Mm.
like we were transitioning to computer aided drafting. So that happened in the late '90s, and then I would say mid 2000s. I don't even know what you call those zeros or whatever, but
Yeah, the double O's.
the double O's, yeah, we deal with that. Then that's when we started transitioning to 3D. So we went from 2D, drawing squares, to now it was like we were building Legos.
Yeah.
That's what I equated to because I was a big Lego kid when I was growing up.
Is that when
And
architecture went bad? No, just
yeah, yeah, yeah. So so this whole thing is very reminiscent of that because I was like on the team. There were two or three of us at a given time where we were working on, switching the company over to 3D. I worked at a architectural lighting company,
Mhm.
and everybody hated it. Like all the old school guys are like, oh my God, now I got to learn another thing. We already had to learn this 2D thing like, 7, 8 years ago. Now we got to learn this 3D stuff. It's like,
Oh
this
my
is
God,
crazy.
time marches on.
And people hated me, it's like kill the messenger, right? Like, cause I'm there, like bringing in, it's like, I'm looking at SolidWorks, I'm looking at, Autodesk Inventor, like all these different programs I'm looking at and learning. And it took a while, but after we picked one, implemented it, all that, people were coming up to me after it was over and they're like, it's really great that we did this. This saves me so much time.
Yep.
I mean, I can't
Yep.
even believe all the stuff I can do with this. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I tried telling you, but you didn't you didn't believe me.
So
So
before
I
any
have that experience.
technological thing, there's always that resistance, right? Oh, this change is awful. It's going to be the worst possible thing. But on the back end, it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, and it's the same thing that's happening right now with people too. I'm just like, go use the AI, just start using it and you'll understand pretty quickly. And then, fast forward probably a year or around that time, I started thinking about I designed a product and I should say I simplified a product and it was saving like, I don't know, I took it from like $85 every time it went through the factory to like $15 every time it went through the factory.
Nice. Nice.
So then and over time, the math is rolling up in my head, right? Like, so I'm just like, oh my God, and it's like, hey, thanks, Corey. Here's $1 raise next time. And I'm thinking like, how many thousands and thousands of dollars?
Wait a second.
Yeah. So, ultimately I just started feeling like I wasn't getting paid what I was worth. But, it's the agreement I made. That's part of the employment. That's what we do, no time there. But it was like, okay, I need to figure out how I can extract as much value as I possibly can and get paid what I'm worth, right?
Right.
That's when I went down the whole rabbit hole with the internet. And I just started learning so much, basically about how to make money online, how to stay relevant, and just, I'm a curious guy. So I was going down every rabbit hole that I possibly could. Eventually, 2013, I left that particular job and I became, well, a solopreneur. And probably the bulk of my income, I've done stuff like, affiliate marketing with, in the music industry. I did some stuff like that. But excuse me, but the bulk of my income for the last 10 years has been like Google Ads, like I'm a search marketer, freelancer, Google Ads manager, pay-per-click, whatever. There's a million words for that too. So
super
so
important
that's
job, because nowadays that's the only way to get found, is to do this properly. So when you were doing uh, engineering, right? So architecture, engineering, and then you pivoted to something completely different. Like, what made you decide to do that particularly? Did you do a bunch of research on the internet saying this is the best way to go, or did you have some interest in search engine marketing?
uh, it kind of happened by mistake in a way, because I was just looking for ways to make money online. I started poking around with blogging. Admittedly, I actually messed around with network marketing for a while, like MLM, which was
Oh, we all did that. We all
that's a
did that.
whole
That
other.
stopped for me once when actually I was at one of these meetings in person, and the cops showed up, and it's like, okay, I'm done.
Oh wow.
I
Okay, I
am
wasn't
not.
at one of those.
I am not going to be involved in this ever again.
And that's in Google Ads is how that kind of is what led to Google Ads. And it was so I was working with this company, and then I'm like, oh wow, this Google Ads, I'll just do it. I see all these people searching for, whatever the thing I was. I'm trying not to be, I want to be nice because I don't want to
Yeah.
like rip on any companies because they're still around. And but when I started doing that, nobody would let me do it. They're like, well, you
Mm.
can't do that. And I'm like, well, what do you mean I can't do that? It's my bit. I learned how to build a website. I learned how to drive traffic to it. I can take those leads, right? And they're like,
Yeah.
no, you can't do that. It's against terms of service, blah, 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 blah. Tried the same thing with a company that my wife was working with at the time. Hers was like beer bread. I'm like, wow, there's all kinds of people looking for beer bread. I'll just drive leads. So I started doing that, but I got shut down each time. So that led to frustration. It's like, well, I guess I need my own thing. I need my own
Right.
baby.
Right.
So that's how I got into that. But ultimately, I started selling like guitar courses, like guitar affiliate
Oh,
courses. That's
nice.
the first time that I actually made like legit money. I was like, whoa, hey, I can generate hundreds or thousands of dollars a month. And that worked for a while. And then I don't know if anybody understands the idea of the Google slap, but Google ads got more and more difficult over the years. It used to
Hmm.
be really easy to just slap up any link and then drive
Oh,
traffic.
yeah. It continues to get tougher and tougher to
Yeah.
do to get that.
So I just kind of ended up going away from that. And then I started, people are like, oh, you know how to do that? Well, can you do that for my product? And it just kind of steamrolled from there. I even did it for the company that I was working with, that I was taught, that I left. I actually started
Oh,
doing it
cool.
for them a
That's
couple
always
of
great
years
when you can get a
before
gig with a company that you just left, because they know how
well,
valuable your
Well,
work
it was
is.
it was before I left, because I transitioned from a draftsman while I was there, and I ended up in marketing because they saw what I was doing. Like, I built a fantasy football blog at the time, and I
Nice.
had another website. So they're like, we were trying to do more with the web, and you seem to know what you're doing. You should come and be in our marketing department. So
Yeah.
so I did that, and then I was running Google Ads. I was helping them manage your website. So
Nice.
kind of interesting how I was an intrapreneur, I suppose you could call me, like even
Yeah.
before I left, right? So I was on the job training. And again, I never went to school for any of this stuff. I tell that to people all the time now too. I'm like, I didn't go to school.
Oh,
It
yeah. Did you
was
know
just curious.
75% of coders are self-taught too? Like, a
Oh,
lot of coders out there, they didn't get any of it from school. They got most of it from just doing it on their own.
yeah,
So,
it's just that's what I love about the internet. Since the first day the internet came, I was just infatuated with it because it's like, oh, I can just look up anything, and oh, I can just learn anything, and it's like I love it. It totally changed my life, literally and figuratively. So there.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you're in search engine marketing now, and you said you're doing it for music specifically, or I mean, is that one of your reasons why you
No,
decided to go into it?
that was a very early. That was when I chose music as one of my niches, like way in the early days. We're in about 2007 or 8 at this point.
Right.
Um, now like 2013 when I started doing it on my own, I always joke with people that like my niche is I don't have a niche,
Hmm.
because a lot of my clients are anywhere from like, below the hook lifting, like hoists and um cranes, and but then I have like heavy equipment dealers, but I've had, software, custom software development, dentists, I mean, like I've got tons of different stuff. I got some really weird ones too that I've had over the year that I love it when they're really, I don't know what the word is, like it just unusual. I like those types
Esoteric.
of clients. It's like I have a guy as dog box parts. They only make parts for dog boxes, and these.
Dog box parts.
Yeah, and that's all he just
That's
sells
obscure.
parts for dog boxes, not dog boxes themselves, but just parts for the dog box, and it's just
Right.
like
Interesting.
so. Yeah,
Well,
and
so
there's all kinds of them.
so your thing is actually search engine marketing, but it doesn't really matter what you're marketing. It sounds like the more obscure and strange it is. In fact, it's probably even better. It's probably easier to market those kind of obscure things than it is to market something more generic, right?
Yeah, it is. I have a hair restoration clinic that I have, and they have like, 3 or 4, like 3 locations, and they're difficult because there's a lot of people in, hair. There's hair restoration all over the place.
Yeah.
So that
And
one's
we need it.
difficult, but yeah, but a dog box part guy, like I mean, it's pretty easy to kind of, stay at the top. I work with a beef jerky company as well. That's another one that's super competitive.
Hmm.
When you're trying to get somebody to buy something online that they normally would just buy at a checkout counter or behind the bar at a tavern. It's like,
Wow. Do you say to these people when they come to you, you go like, this is a really tough market. It's hard. It's going to be hard for me to sell your product in here.
I won't. I never say never because I don't know, and everybody has a different approach. Like for instance, for the beef jerky, it's like, well, I'm not going to try to sell an individual pack, but they do really good with like gift packs.
Mm.
People will buy that stuff. Like the holidays that we just had, the holidays, people
Yeah.
are looking for that stuff, and so that's kind of where we focus. We focus on the high dollar amount stuff. With the stuff with the biggest margins. And
Yeah.
because it takes a lot to pay for your ads. You have to include that in your margins. So
Yeah.
when you're doing onesie twosie things, it's not going to work out. But heavy equipment, like big stuff, that stuff is pretty easy to get an ROI on. So
So are you, and were you saying that you were thinking about getting out of it though, but like what's happening in the search engine marketing space that's making it harder and harder for you to
I wouldn't,
make money
I
in?
would, yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm like getting out of it. I'm
Okay.
just kind of hedging my bets, because
Right.
like the writing on the wall is there. When I use ChatGPT, which is almost daily now, um, I don't go to Google and search for stuff as much as I used to, because it's faster. I mean, you have to, everything's with a grain of salt. I look at ChatGPT like, super Wikipedia.
Hmm.
Like, we know like not everything
Without
is like
ads so far. Without ads so far.
so far. Yeah, we'll see. I'm a marketer, so keeping my eye on that. But you can just start to see there's less and less things that people are going to be using Google for.
Mm.
They're gonna shift over. They can still use Google, but they're going to be using the barred version of Google, or they're going to be using Bing. The assistant, the
Yeah,
AI
or
assistant on Bing.
Perplexity or any of these other AI engines. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just start to think about it. It's like, what, I better start thinking about it a little. Just kind of like I said, hedge my bets because a lot of my eggs are in a search engine basket right now. So I need to just kind of diversify a little bit. And I don't know. It's just, yeah, like I said, just it's basic. That's the simple thing. Just because I just see the writing on the wall, kind of, So and I don't want to be on the wrong side. I think Google Ads is going to be around for a while. They've been using AI for. I mean, a lot of people don't realize this, but they bought DeepMind, was it? They bought DeepMind in the mid 2000
Mm-hmm.
teens, tens. And you know, they have been running their ads, I would say in about 2016, 17, they actually were layering AI in the back end of all their, and all machine
Interesting.
learning in the back end of all their ad networks and stuff like that. So something I've
But
been thinking about for a couple of years, even before I was actually use it in this way. So
right. But does it actually still pay to use Google AdWords? Because I mean, I've been using them for some of my businesses, and they're damn expensive, and they're not very effective. I mean, is that normal, or is that just because my ads suck?
well, it's a combination of a lot of things. You know,
Okay.
it is an auction. So like the more people that are in your particular niche or your market, you know, the clicks are gonna be higher.
Right.
That means that you just need to be way more diligent about the conversion process. You know, what happens after the click, you know, that's where it comes in. So wired do your ads think? I mean, they could be, maybe the ad copy isn't great. Maybe you're targeting the wrong audience, you know,
Hmm.
because if you're, I can get you a million clicks, you know, like in a couple hours if you want them, but are they going to be the people that you want to be talking to? You know, probably not, unless you really do a deep dive on your audience. And then
Right.
once you know who your audience is, then you got to bring them through the, you know, bring them to the next step. You know, you got to tell them what they want to hear, and you want to get them to move, take the next step once they get to your website. So how good is your website after the click? You know, so all these things kind of play in. You're going to want a good offer. So it's not just a real easy answer. But they are worth it. Otherwise, if they weren't worth it and they weren't working, guess what? Google wouldn't be giant, because that's like a huge chunk of their revenue.
That's
And
true. That's true.
so if it wasn't working, Google wouldn't be Google, you know?
Yeah. I
That's
find
their,
it ironic because Google actually stole that idea from Yahoo, who bought Overture, right? And Overture initially created the AdWords concept, and then Google took the idea and they did it. Then Yahoo sued Google, and they just paid them off with 40 million bucks or something like that, instead of doing some kind of ongoing revenue stream, which is why Google is where it is today, and Yahoo is practically gone, right?
well,
So it's ironic.
yeah, I would say this though. Did they steal the idea or did they improve on it? It's kind of like saying, did Facebook steal MySpace's idea or did they just improve on it? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like MySpace was around. For Google, the genius behind Google, and the reason why this is geeky, but how I fell in love with the platform is because the difference between Google and Yahoo at the time is Yahoo is, you would just pay to be at the top.
Yep.
You know, it was like a leapfrog thing.
Yep.
With Google, it's not like that. They prioritized relevance over that. So like you could be in the, or you still can be, you could be third, fourth, you could be first and be paying less than the person in three, four, or five,
Hmm.
because it's all relevance. So you get a relevance score. It's all based on the stuff I talked to you, or I was explaining before, you know, like what happens after the click. Like Google's main objective, at least back then in the don't be evil days, was was to when their customer, the searcher, searches for something, they want them to find that like in one click. That's
Yep.
like that's your objective. So if you were able to help them do that, they would reward you with lower fees. Not only that, but they realized over time that there was more money in the volume than there was in the, you know, the paying extra for a click, right? So like
Mm.
um even though they might charge you less for a click, they're going to make it up because, you know, a good 60-70% of the clicks are going to be in that first result, right? So
Right.
like they might charge you. So that's the relevance is the key.
Right.
And that's the difference and the big differentiator between them and Yahoo. That
So
was their,
as a search engine marketer right now, would you recommend that people go through you instead of doing it on their own? Because I'm sure that there's lots of startups out there trying to do it themselves and are failing miserably. You probably have a lot of knowledge about how to do it right, right? So the
it's
probably best thing for them to do is to go to you, somebody like you.
I would say it all depends on how much time you want to spend on it, right? You can learn something on your own, you can learn something with some coaching. Or you can just say, you know what, I don't have time to learn all this. I'm gonna let somebody else do it, right?
Right.
And that's, so first you ask yourself that question. Then the reason why somebody would go with me as opposed to like going on their own is I don't want to tell everybody not to learn Google Ads, because some of my best clients know how to run Google Ads before they
Right.
even get to me. You know, they're
Right.
the best clients a lot of
But they
times.
understand how much work it is, and that's why they give it to you to do.
Exactly. Yeah. But I would say like the biggest value that somebody like me would bring to the table is the fact, all the experience that I have running it every day, but also the trust factor, because I don't want to say anything bad about Google. I'm always nervous about doing that, but like they're not for you, right? Everything on the
Mm,
platform is set up for Google and their shareholders. They want
yeah.
to show a profit every month. And there's all kinds of little gotchas and little psychological things in the interface that, hey, this is a recommended feature. Yeah, it's
Mm,
recommended for, to help Google get more money.
yeah.
but you wouldn't, but you
Not
wouldn't want
particularly
to,
for you.
yeah, it's not great for your client, because it just, I don't know, there's all kinds of gotchas. And in fact, that's
Right.
usually one of the first places you start when you're teaching somebody. It's like, hey, don't click on that, don't use that, don't
Yeah.
select that, like
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. So trust, you have somebody that's in your corner, like
Mm,
that's kind of like a watchdog, right? That's kind of like a big value that I bring, other than all my experience.
right. So you were talking about earlier about pivoting into the future of work. So how are you looking to do that?
Right now, I think my biggest thing is like personal branding. I'm not a big fan of the word brand after reading like category some of the category design stuff, but best way for everybody to understand it. I think that's like a big thing, right? So I'm gonna learn how to try to future proof myself, learn as much about this AI as I possibly can, and then kind of try to create a brand around that, like with
Mm,
my and so I've really spent a lot of time trying to figure out, okay, what are some of the topics that I want to talk about for the rest of my life? What
right.
do I naturally like? What can I make money at?
Right.
And I just kind of chose three things, and I'm just going to kind of throw that stuff out there and just, think of a Venn diagram. I'm going to try to find that sweet spot in the middle, and
Right.
that's kind of what I'm working on right now. With my newsletter and, my YouTube channel that I'm starting to kind of fire up again. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. And then hopefully I could pass that along to people that are kind of coming along behind me, in the same situation that I am. Because there's a lot of people, especially in our generation,
Hmm.
that whether it's ageism or they just sick of working, and they want to start transitioning to retirement, or maybe they don't want to retire. Because that's my thing. I don't
Yeah.
ever plan to retire, because I like everything that I work on so much that I'm sure I'm going to be messing with something marketing probably when I'm 85, right? I'm going
Oh
to
yeah.
still wake up
Yeah.
and
I'm in the
read
same boat.
something.
What's
So,
interesting is that I was reading an article about, so I was subscribed to Reason Magazine. They had this feature on Florida, and they were talking about a place called the Villages and how there was this documentary on a
yep.
place called the Villages, which is, I don't know, you've probably heard of it, right?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I have.
It's a huge retirement community. And in this documentary, even they in their 80s and 90s are going to seminars going, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And I'm like, if you don't know what you want to do by the time you're 80, maybe that's a target market for looking.
Well, it's like you really never, I mean, not everybody, I should say, but a lot of people never really know what they want to do when they
Yeah.
grow up, and it's just
Yeah.
like,
And they never grow up.
yeah, that too. You just and it's like, and it's never too late to figure that stuff out, right? And I'm
Exactly.
kind of an example of that too. Like I have two albums. I'm a singer songwriter too, and it's like I did those when I was in my late 30s, and I
Mm,
never played a show. I never even sang a song until I was in my 30s, and then all of a sudden I just kind of discovered this whole side of me, and it's like, it's just never too late. And it's like
yeah.
that's another big message that I have too, because I got a lot of friends that are just like, oh man, I'm just too old and I wish I would have did this. And I'm like, well, what's stopping you? We're living longer these days. There's
Yeah.
a lot, our lives are better for longer too. It's not like we're just gonna, 65 and we're gonna be sitting in a bed and like,
65 is the new 45, right?
yeah,
It's the new
exactly.
35.
So yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity out there, and I love talking about it. I love success stories. So it's like anything I can do to, build something around those types of topics, that's what I'm trying to do right now. So
So would you say that there's a lot of people so there's a bunch of people who've really embraced AI, right? And they're reusing it every day, just like us, right? I mean, I use it every day. You use it every day. There's plenty of people who use it every day. But then there's a whole cadre of people who are like, oh no, I don't want to go anywhere near that stuff. I mean, I think those people, they've got to start using it, right? That's the only way they can actually ensure that they're going to have a job or work, not just a job, but work, period.
Yeah, I think I'm going to compare it a lot to the internet again. I mean, I think that's
Yeah.
probably for us old enough to remember the beginning of the internet. It's the same thing. Like when the internet first came out, it's like, it's a fad. Like there's like some famous YouTube clips out there of David Letterman like ripping on it. You know what I mean? Like, and even so it's just like it's gonna be that same mentality. And it's like, believe it or not, there's people to this day, business owners that like, I don't need a website, and it's just like,
I know.
there's always gonna be that, Luddites, right? So it's like
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything we can do about it other than, just I'm telling people, just get out there and use it. And once you
Yeah.
kind of understand it and the light bulb's going to go off and then boom, you're going to be using it. It's just like, I was even the guy that was like, I don't need a mobile, like when mobile phones started becoming a thing. I didn't even have a flip phone or nothing. I held out for and I'm an early adopter guy for like a lot of stuff. And I'm like, nah, I don't need it. I don't need it yet. And then all of a sudden I had my first smartphone and it was like, oh, ding, 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 ding.
I get it.
It was like, and then the iPhone, it was like, okay, I guess this is now connected to my hip for the rest of my life.
The thing that
So,
drives me crazy is that a lot of people are like, they're just so anti this stuff, but AI is actually, I think it's a good thing. It's just like you said, and eventually it'll be everywhere, so we can't ignore it like the internet. But at the same time, we really, there's just too many people pushing the downsides of it than they are pushing the upsides of it.
that happens for everything. Like everything, the yin and the yang, the good and the bad, it's all that stuff. And I always tell this story, like, because people would always say the same thing about marketing, like, oh, marketers are evil and sales guys are evil, and all this stuff is evil. And I'm like, all this stuff is all these things is just tools, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can use a tool. Let's take a knife, like go caveman days on here, right? Like invent a knife. We can either go out and like stab somebody and kill somebody with the knife, or or we can
it's a tool.
fillet a fish and feed our family with the knife. You know what I mean? Or like cut up some twine to like build a shelter or something.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So I always just try to look at everything as like it's a tool. It's
right.
the human element that adds the evil or subtracts the evil. So
exactly.
if you look at it that way, I think you're better off. I don't know.
Yep. All right, so it's time to think like a futurist. It's the year 2034, 10 years from now. Where do you think we'll be? Where do you think you'll be? What do you think we'll all be doing? Will all our jobs be gone and we'll be just lying on a beach somewhere and let the AI do the work for us?
I hope not. I don't think I can't say for sure that we won't, because there's a lot of homeless stuff going on right now that it's just, I think the people that are going to wake up, they're going to realize that they want to be doing something, and that's just the way it is, right? I mean, so I think that's going to happen. There's going to be a lot more, even more solopreneur, freelance type people out there. Everybody's going to kind of be their own independent contractor. I think that's going to be the big thing. The other thing that I tend to like about what I read when I'm reading like future type stuff is the fact that like right now we're using ChatGPT. It's kind of like this interface that's, that we go to the computer on our phone to get. But I think at some point it's just going to be part of us. It's going to be just, Corey 2.0 or Corey bot assistant.
Yeah.
And I think you're going to see a lot of that stuff where.
Yeah, I want to see a digital twin of me that can actually do a bunch of stuff that I would normally, it's just like a pain in the ass to do every day.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much of that we have to do.
Yeah, I think that's kind of going to be the main thing. Other than that, I don't know. I think just with work in general, there's going to be so many things that we don't even know. I hate to even try to predict the future, because if you would have told me in 1990 when I was graduating from high school that I was going to be, a Google Ads manager when I grew up, there's no way you could have known that, because Google didn't exist for another 15 years. And
That's right.
this, like, I have a 17-year-old daughter, and like, and a lot of these young kids that come around the house, and I tell them the same thing. They're all, I'm like, you know what? You guys just trust me. Don't stress out about what you got to do with the rest of your life, because I did, and it made me. I made some wrong decisions along the way. Things are happening so fast, and there's so much opportunity, and things don't exist today that might exist 4 days from now or tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
So just focus on learning, getting good skills, and being a good person. I think those are never going to go away. So just focus on that stuff, right?
Yeah. And I think it's
Follow
really
your
important
passion.
to be very general, like you're saying. It's like try a lot of different things. Like you can't just go down one road and be done with it. There's so many opportunities out there that you gotta try them all or test them all to see if you like something.
Yeah, you're not going to walk up to the buffet and just say, you know what, I'm only going to have turkey for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know, like that's all I'm going to eat for the
But
rest of
that's what
my
we were
life.
told. We were kids, right? I remember
Yeah,
my dad. It's like I'm getting into computers, and he goes, "Don't go into computers. That's just a fad. Do real estate." Right? Well, I mean, he was right in a way.
yeah. You know, I can use the same. I think the same thing applies to like with my dad. Like when I grew up, I was always attracted to, you know, like music, and
Yeah.
even if it was just a DJ or playing it or whatever it was, but it was the creative side of me that was really calling me. But it would
Right.
always be him, like, well, how are you going to make money doing that? You know,
I
and it's
know.
just like, and it's like that's kind of what I ended up veering into the drafting, you know, into the stuff.
Yeah.
Which great career, it fit me, but now we come full circle, and I think that actually that's probably the biggest skill to have going forward is the creativity, because there's just some things I don't think that AI is going to get there. Maybe it will. I had a great interview the other day. I apologize if I'm going too long here, but
No, no, you're fine. Keep
it
going.
was between Naval and Naval Ravikant and David Joyce. You can find it on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. But they were talking about this idea, like David Deutsch was talking about, like when he uses ChatGPT, he's like, I don't see any creativity at all. He goes,
Mm,
people think that like, you know, marrying two ideas together, you know, different ideas is creativity, or they think that like just because it surprised people with something they never saw before that it's creativity. But he's like, no, he goes, creativity cannot be defined, because once you define it, then it becomes something that you can build into a system, right? Like, and
mhm.
then once it becomes systematized, well, then it's not creative anymore, you know? And it was just
Right.
like, I was
Exactly.
like, whoa. And I was like sitting there, that messed with me for a good 24 hours, you know, like that's been sitting in my brain.
But
But
I find ChatGPT really creative because it does. I mean, but if you think about it, I mean, I come from a legal patent background too. It's like I've done a lot of patent work, and a lot of times patent ideas in patents are just combinations of other things, right? So it's a lot of you can do a lot of creative stuff, but we're all standing on the shoulders of giants, right?
yeah,
And if you think about it, when you're using ChatGPT, you're actually standing on the shoulders of giants because it was fed all of this human created information. So it's spitting out human created information. It's doing its own, putting it
it,
together like Lego blocks, but
it
it's
is.
still, other stuff that we've done in the past.
There's also this other component to creativity, I think, that we can't put our finger on it, that nobody's defined necessarily.
Yeah.
And I'm a songwriter, so that's the best way I can do it. I've heard writers talk about this. I've heard painters, artists, you name your artist. But there's always this thing, and I have a quote on my latest blog post from Bruce Springsteen, like where he's like, I don't know where that came from. You know, like I don't know where that line came from. I don't know where that melody came from. It just came from somewhere else, right? It's
Yeah.
like there always this thing, because no matter what, we can't fathom how large a data set is that, you know, AI is looking at. But no matter what, there's a finite box that
Yeah.
all that information is, and it doesn't get any new information until a human thinks about it or creates that
That's
new
right.
thing. Do you know what I'm saying?
Everything in
Like
there
until
is being
we,
created by our brains.
yeah, like we're pulling stuff out of the ether, right? Like I mean,
Yep.
there's just that something, like, you know, if you're religious, it could be like the Holy Spirit, it could be the universe, it could be whatever that thing is, our collective consciousness, whatever that is. That's something that the machine does not have, at least yet.
Yep.
So that's where I want to focus my attention, is like, what is it? What are those things? And that to me is the you know, the $10,000 an hour work, not the
Yeah.
$10 an hour work. You know what I mean? Like to use a Perry Marshall reference. You know that.
Fantastic.
So yeah.
Well, so this has been great. Thank you so much. We should do this again. I love this conversation. So, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
I would say always on Twitter. You can find me at Corey K Media, at Corey K Media, and that's Corey with an EY.
Hmm.
And then also, my latest project is probably a good place to start. It's called redefiningretirement.io, and you'll kind of see what's going on there. And you'll find, if you want to Google ad stuff, you can, you know, just start at one of those places, and you'll figure it out. Pretty
Awesome.
easy.
Well, I'll put the links in the show notes so people can go directly to you. So thanks so much. That was great.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. I really appreciate having me. This was fun.
Talk to you later.
See ya.
Thanks. Bye.